Hey everyone, welcome to this session on daily newspaper reading, that is daily news analysis for December 21. In this session, we take up important news that is relevant for your CLAT and other entrance examinations, and we analyze the news, we read the news with you so that you know which are the relevant portions from the newspapers and which are not so important that you can ignore while reading the newspaper. So let's come to the important news for December 21st. The first one is Vadnagar town, Modhera Sun Temple, Unakoti sculptures, these three have been added to UNESCO's tentative list of World Heritage Sites. So Gujarat's Vadnagar town, the iconic Sun Temple at Modhera, and the rock cut sculptures of Unakoti in Tripura have been added to the tentative list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The UNESCO tentative list is an inventory of those properties which each state party intends to consider for nomination. Now, with addition of these three, India has 52 sites on UNESCO tentative list. The Sun Temple Modhera, dedicated to Suryadev, is the earliest of such temples with such trends in architectural and decorative details representing the Solanki style at its best. Vadnagar is a municipality under Mehnasa district of Gujarat, a multi-layered historic town. The history of Vadnagar stretches back to nearly 8th century BCE. The town still retains a large number of historic buildings that are primarily religious and residential in nature. Unakoti, located in the northeastern region of Tripura, is known as an ancient holy place associated with Shav worship. The site is a massive gallery set in a forested area, displaying a number of towering, low relief images in a unique style, making it a masterpiece of human creative genius. So, whenever a site is declared as World Heritage Site, and if any Indian site is declared as World Heritage Site of UNESCO, that is very important aspect. You should be aware of the names of the sites. India has now 52 sites on UNESCO tentative list, and this Vadnagar town, Modhera Sun Temple, and Unakoti sculptures are added to the UNESCO's list. UNESCO, the full form of UNESCO is United Nations Education, Scientific, Cultural Organization. So it's one of the organs of the United Nations. So these are some trivias regarding the UNESCO, regarding the World Heritage Sites, regarding India's the tentative list where the three more are added to the UNESCO's tentative list of World Heritage Sites. High Court upholds removal of teacher accused of sexual harassment of students. So the Delhi High Court has said the well-being of school children in sexual harassment cases is of utmost importance due to the long-term effects of such incidents. So whenever such incident happen, that has a very psychological effect on the students, on the children who are victim of such instances. So it is of utmost importance that it is taken care of. A bench of Chief Justice Satish Chandra Sharma and Justice Subramaniam Prasad made the remarks while upholding the penalty of compulsory retirement of a physics teacher who was accused of sexual harassment of class 9 student. The bench said the act can have the effect of hindering normal social growth of the child and lead to various psychosocial problems which could require psychological intervention. So the High Court said a minor's mental psyche is vulnerable, impressionable, and in a developing stage, and sexual harassment has the potential to cause mental trauma that may dictate the child's thought process for years to come. The court's order came on an appeal by the teacher who had challenged the punishment of compulsory retirement imposed on him by the Delhi School Tribunal and upheld by a single judge bench of the High Court. The facts of the case reveal that the complainant, who is a student of class 9, has been subjected to sexual harassment. But dealing with matters related to such sexual harassment of school-going children, paramount consideration is to be given to the well-being of the child whose mental psyche is vulnerable, impressionable, and in a developing stage. The long-term effects of the childhood sexual harassment are at many times insurmountable. An act of sexual harassment therefore has the potential to cause the mental trauma to the child that may dictate their thought process for years to come. The bench, while dismissing the teacher's appeal, added, It can have the effect of hindering normal social growth of the child and lead to various psychosocial problems which could require psychological intervention. So, whenever any such incident happens, especially with the school children, that is of very serious nature, and the courts make sure that these things are taken seriously, because it not only affects the physical well-being of the student, but also the psychological, the mental, the effect that it has on the psychological and mental psychosocial effects that it has. That is also of paramount importance, that is taken into consideration while deciding these cases. So accordingly, the Delhi High Court has upheld the removal of a teacher who was accused of sexual harassment of student. Panel flags victimization of SC/ST employees of PSU. So there has been an increase in the number of incidents of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe employees of public sector undertakings who are being victimized in the name of verification of caste certificates. So a parliamentary standing committee has noted in a report that was tabled in the parliament. The committee has said that the employees were facing undue delays in the verification of their caste certificates, while prescribing a slew of measures to the Department of Personnel and Training to sensitize state government machinery to streamline the process of caste certificate verification. The Committee on Welfare of Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe also called for the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment to bring legislation to curb the menace of false certificate, false caste certificate. So both things are there. Number one, it should be streamlined. Number two, we should also curb the menace of false caste certificate. The committee, chaired by BJP MP Kirit Premji Bhai Solanki, expressed dismay over delays in the verification of caste certificates. It said that pension benefits and emoluments of SC/ST employees should not become the subject matter of harassment or victimization. It added that each and every case of delayed verification should be treated as an offence, and responsibility should be fixed for the lapse. So measures are being taken, and this panel has flagged that the delay that is caused in the verification of the caste certificate of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe employees, that needs to come to an end, and it should be treated as an offence. Any delay should be treated as an offence. Government said to plan tax waivers for IDBI bank buyer. What is IDBI? The full form is Industrial Development Bank of India. The centre is likely to waive some tax norms for the buyer of IDBI bank in a bid to attract more suitors for a majority stake sale in the lender. So the government resources said on Tuesday, after the centre extended the deadline for initial bids. The finance ministry is looking to relax a tax clause which would require the buyer of IDBI bank to pay additional tax if the share price rises post the final bid, one of the officials said. Share prices tend to increase after financial bids are invited by the government. Now, noting that it would be unfair to ask the new buyer to pay tax on an increase in the price from time to time from the time bids are placed to the closer of transaction. Once the government receives initial bids expressing interest from the buyers, the RBI would vet them to see if they meet the central bank's fit and proper criteria. The finance ministry did not immediately reply to request seeking comment. So this is the scenario that is going on regarding the selling of majority stake of the IDBI bank. So the government is, there is plan to waive some tax for the buyers of majority stake in IDBI bank. Taliban regime orders nationwide ban on varsity education for Afghan girls. Now, as you know, the last year there has been, it was very much in news, and the Taliban authorities have ordered now a nationwide ban on university education for girls. So the hardline Islamists, they continue to crush Afghan women's right to education and freedom. When they came last year, they promised a softer rule when they seized power last year. The Taliban have ratcheted up the restrictions on all aspects of women's life, ignoring international outrage. There is an international outrage throughout the world regarding the position of women in Taliban in Afghanistan, but ignoring all that outrage, they are continuing the restrictions on the women. Their rights are being denied. You all are informed to immediately implement and the mentioned order of suspending education of females until further notice. This was written in a letter that was issued to all government and private universities, which was signed by the Minister for Higher Education, Nida Muhammad Nadeem. The spokesperson for the ministry, Ziaullah Hashimi, who tweeted the letter, confirmed the order in a text message. The ban on higher education comes less than 3 months after thousands of girls and women wrote university entrance exam across the country. So they have already written the university entrance examination and now they are imposing a ban on higher education of women. So that's a very sad state of affairs. The women rights are being curtailed in Afghanistan. After the takeover by the Taliban, universities were forced to implement new rules, including gender segregated classrooms and entrances, while women were only permitted to be taught by women professors or older men. So, these are some of the restrictions in Afghanistan after the Taliban regime took over, and as it was expected, also the women's rights will be curtailed, and there is a ban on the women higher education, on freedom, on education, and so many restrictions are there in Taliban in Afghanistan. Government hospitals can't insist on voter ID for treatment, the Delhi High Court has clarified. The Delhi High Court said that the government hospitals in the national capital must provide medical treatment to all citizens irrespective of their place of residence. So it's not, if someone is a resident of Delhi, he should not be given preference over someone who is not from Delhi, because the hospitals in the in Delhi, they are for everyone, and whether the services are equal for everyone. Justice Pratibha Singh made this observation while hearing a plea by a Bihar resident who alleged that the city government run Lok Nayak Hospital provided free MRI test only to the residents of Delhi and not to those who are not from Delhi. The petitioner also told the court that the hospital had given him a date in July 2024 to do an MRI of his left knee, whereas patients from Delhi were getting earlier dates for the same test. In response, the Delhi government told the court that its hospital did not discriminate against the patients based on their place of residence. The High Court observed that they can't insist on voter ID here. It added that AIIMS or any other hospital in Delhi cannot stop citizens from coming to the capital to seek treatment. The court reiterated its earlier judgment, whereas it had ruled that insofar as health treatment is concerned, treatment has to be provided to all citizens without any consideration for their place of residence. The petitioner claimed that patients with Delhi voter ID cards were given earlier dates for their treatment, while those from outside were made to wait for longer periods. The petitioner also said that a doctor at the Lok Nayak Hospital told him that the free of cost MRI facility was available to Delhi's residents only, while others had to pay for the test. But High Court has now clarified that government hospitals cannot insist on voter ID for treatment. They cannot treat the residents of Delhi differently than the non-residents. That discrimination on the basis of place of residence should not happen in the government hospitals. That is essentially the views. Government probes possible misappropriation of SOPs by electronic vehicle makers. India is investigating the possible misappropriation of incentives given to electric vehicle makers under a $100 billion program to promote their faster adoption. Minister for Heavy Industries Mahindra Nath Pandey told the parliament. Complaints were made against 12 firms, including Hero Electric Vehicles Private Limited and Okinawa Autotech Private Limited, for violating guidelines. Mr. Pandey said two EV makers had been suspended from taking incentives under the scheme. However, he did not name the two firms. Now, here other organizations such as G20 may step up to take a more prominent role in international affairs than the United Nations if the global body fails to introduce reforms in the United Nations Security Council. This was said by Ruchira Kamboj, the permanent representative of India at the United Nations. So if not reformed, United Nations will be overtaken by other organizations. While process may be complex, it does not mean change cannot happen. Ruchira Kambod says, adding it has been an agenda for 3 decades to make some changes. So as you know, that United Nations works according to certain guidelines, and there is a need for reform. The way United Nations Security Council works, General Assembly works, there is a whole hierarchy that comes into play. Then there is a veto power also involved. So some reformation is required. Otherwise, other organizations like G20 will take it over. Speaking on the issues, reform multilateralism and counterterrorism during the December presidency of India at the United Nations Security Council, Ms. Kambu said that the reformation of the United Nations is the most complex process of the United Nations system. It involves several aspects. It requires all the permanent members, the P5, to be on board. It requires that no P5 should veto the matter, and all of that, and much more. There are many who aspire to be in a reformed council, but there are many who would not like to see those in the council. Therefore, the process is indeed very complex. Ms. Kamboj said that there is a lot of permission and cynicism about the possibility of reform of the United Nations Security Council, as the item of reform has remained on the agenda for the United Nations Security Council for nearly 30 years, for nearly 3 decades, without any substantive progress. So now people are getting cynical that we have been talking the same thing over and over again since 30 years and no progress is seen. So now the people are not very hopeful about it. Harsh V. Pant, who moderated the session, raised the possibility of minilaterals playing a more active role in the global affairs, to which Ms. Kambo said that it is possible that if the reform of the United Nations Security Council refuses to make any progress, today you have almost 200 member states, their voices are not being heard anymore. Let's say the voice of the voiceless, the smaller states, the countries from Africa, who hears them, everything is being scripted for them in many ways. So maybe the United Nations will be overtaken by other institutions, for example, that are more democratic, such as the G20. The envoy, however, urged not to rush to any conclusion on such possibilities. So reform is required in the United Nations, or else there is a possibility others will take over. Next news is about the airport, the security check. As you might be aware that when you go to the airport, you have to take out your laptop, your electronic gadgets, and that causes delay. So the new scanners to speed up security check at the airports are coming. That will speed up this process. So BCAS, what is BCAS? Bureau of Civil Aviation Security. Bureau of Civil Aviation Security to issue technical norms within a month for new security technology to screen cabin bags as well as full body scanners, so that passengers will not have to remove electronic devices that causes a lot of delay. The long queues of air travelers removing their laptops, mobile phones and chargers from their cabin baggage before screening them could soon become history in India. The aviation security regulator, the Bureau of Civil Aviation Securities (BCAS), is expected to issue technical norms within a month, which will pave the way for airports to adopt the modern equipments to screen bags without removing electronic devices. Newer technologies are needed for better security as well as passengers' convenience, BCAS Director General Zulfikar Hassan has told. All airports, including Delhi Airport, need to improve the machines deployed for screening of cabin bags. They're lagging behind. Technologies such as dual X-ray, computer tomography, and neutron beam technology will eliminate the need for passengers to remove laptops and other electronic devices. The call for modernization comes at a time when airports across the country are seeing record number of air travelers that have already exceeded the pre-COVID levels. A total of 4.27 lakh domestic travelers were seen on December 11 at the Delhi airport, which recently saw overcrowding resulting in passengers missing flights. Security lanes were found to be biggest congestion points, primarily because the number of X-ray machines for screening cabin bags were not commensurate with passenger traffic. Now, senior government officials have blamed airports for failing to grow their infrastructure to cater to growing numbers of flights and passengers, and Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia stepped in to order the airport operator to provide more machines for screening cabin bags. So this was one such news, which is a good news that if implemented within 1 month, there could be some progress in this front, that you won't have to wait in the long queues just to enter the airport. With the newer technology, you might not have the necessity to remove your laptops, mobile phones, and other electronic devices. So that's it for right now. Thank you so much. See you in the next session with more set of important news that might be relevant for you. All the best. See you in the next session.